welcome to Going X and O. I am Randy from the X and One cast, and I am here today talking with Tony Hunter, Huntsman on the Discord, the recent winner of the Rocky Mountain Open event out in Colorado. How's it going?
Hey, how you doing? Thanks for having me.
I am so excited to have you because if anyone listens to our cast, they will know that I am a diehard Shadow Collective player. It's been a lot of dying harder lately than other things, but I love to see a new innovation coming out of limited tools. So I'm glad to have you here to talk with me today, man.
Yeah, thanks.
So yeah, if you just want to take us through how you started playing Legion, if SC is your only faction, your local scene, that kind of thing.
Yeah, sure. So I have been playing miniature games since I was 12 years old, and I'm nearly 50 now, so quite a while. I played all the way through a lot of Games Workshop games and so on, and then when I saw Legion was being announced, I pre-ordered it and got it day one. Basically, I was a big Star Wars fan and have been playing miniature games my whole life, so it was just made for me, really. And then the first few years I played Empire actually, and I was a big Boba bikes player. Loved the Mandalorians, loved the bikes, loved the speed. All my lists have a lot of speed in them. I like to move a lot. And then when they announced Shadow Collective and it had more Mandalorians and buses and swoops, it was a no-brainer for me. So I had to get in on that as well. So I played Shadow Collective for a couple of years, and then just at the end of the last version of Legion, clones were just really ripping everything up, and I got a little sick of getting my teeth kicked in, so I jumped over and started playing clones, but wasn't really for me. And just a couple of weeks ago, I decided right before RMO, I decided, right, let's go back to Shadow Collective. So it had been a year or so, but I jumped back into Shadow Collective, and initially, I had played a couple of lists that were lower acts, and they just weren't cutting it. And I really think higher acts are where it is in the game now. So I tried to build a list that had as many acts for Shadow Collective as I could get in it and still hit hard and move fast. And that's why I ended up with the list that I've got here.
Okay, cool. We will go through it just here in a second. I did want to point out that I felt like this event had a fairly even split of factions or forces, as everyone likes to shove us back in that corner.
Yeah.
They don't want us to play their faction sandbox, but yeah, so I thought that was very interesting to see a balanced field. Is it typically that way in the area, do you find? Or?
Probably more so than anywhere else. So 5280 Legion is the club there in Colorado. It's a great club, great bunch of guys and girls. They pretty much, for the most part, will play what's fun and what they like rather than what's competitive. There's a few players that like to play competitive, but even them, they're playing what they've always played, sort of thing. So I think, we had like 8 Rebels, 8 CIS, 6 Empire, 6 GAR, and 5 Shadow Collective. So it was really even spread all the way through. So, as you say, just a great mix all the way through.
Yeah, it was nice seeing the whole kind of microcosm represented there. I feel like it's been pretty lopsided lately. So I think it was about 34, 35 players. So
yeah. I mean, Rocky Mountain Open in the past has had more than that. Obviously, across the country, we've noticed numbers drop a little bit, and it did affect us a little bit, but still 35 is not too bad.
Oh, yeah, not at all.
Yeah.
All right, so we will go through the list here. Let me pull it up. All right, the spice must flow. I couldn't agree more. But let's we'll go through units, and then I'd like to talk about command cards and your battle deck.
Yeah, for sure. So first we got 3 commanders there. The first one is Gar Saxon. I have the flame projector and the sniper rifle on him. The reason for that is I like to spend the first 2 or 3 turns hanging back and just picking off units that I've knocked down to 1 or 2 models, and he cleans them up. And then about turn 3 to 4, he starts diving POIs. He's got that flamethrower, so when he moves into melee, he can flamethrower because he doesn't have arsenal. He only has the one attack. But that 4 black, 4 white really should surprise a lot of people when he suddenly turns it up for melee. Unfortunately, the only time we got to use that in the tournament was against clones, so it pretty much bounced off everything he used. I had taken it as
Yeah.
I'd taken it as a hedge against rebels and CIS, but I never really ran into any, so I had to try it on clones. Didn't work so well, but it'll stay there for when I do play them. Then I have two capos. Now the capos go with the 4 naked pikes. I have 2 capos and 4 naked pikes there. I split them into 2 groups of 2, so there's one capo and 2 pikes, and I'll usually put them on each flank. I'm going for recover the research or shifting priorities, and what I do is I take those guys, one on each flank. They secure the easy ones, while I really punch up the middle and try and take all the attention on everything else. And usually people can't concentrate on everything I have there, and I can take a couple of objectives with those light guys. Then we got a Black Sun Enforcer there. He's got the Magdet, the Vigo, the targeting scopes, and the impact grenades. The impact grenades I'd initially put in there because I thought I was going to run into a lot of aquas and vehicles and so on. And impact 7 is what that would be rolling there. I think in future I would probably go frag grenades though there. The impact grenades still bounced off the armor a little bit too, so I think I'd rather have the frag grenades can hit troops as well.
Yeah, for sure.
But yeah, they ride on one bus. They're usually the last ones out. The second to last activation after the last bus. And usually my opponent is fully activated by then, and I can just punch straight to wherever the best target is and knock it straight out. And then I'll usually play Ploy turn 2, so they can go again immediately and knock another one out. So they're punching. They're like my turn 1, turn 2 punch. They usually don't last long after that, but it's enough to get the opponent's attention.
Yeah, for sure.
Then we got 3 Mandalorians. I got marksman and jetpack rockets on all 3 of those. One of them rides in the bus. That gives them an order too, so helps my order control. And so he usually, the way I work my order control is I'll pull until 4 core have come out, and that's the 4 pikes. When I know that my last one is the Black Sun, then I'll go to the first bus with the Mando, and then that'll pad it out a little further. They can play a little cagier and stay back and shoot from range. And then the last 2 acts are usually the bus and the Black Sun. But those Mandos are incredible. Really blew me away this tournament. It had been a while. I was really getting into it by the 5th game. Able to move around and jump from objective to objective. Turn 1 and turn 2, turn 1 they'll usually take out a light vehicle or a squad, and then later on they can move to POIs, and if they're losing the POI or a force user's coming at them, they can withdraw and jump over to another one, and they're just so fast. Then we got the 2 trucks. I have the unorthodox tactician on both of them. They were usually throwing aims to Saxon and the Mandos, and if I had any left, the buses themselves. The Black Suns had usually gone by then, and the Pikes don't need them. But just supporting the Mandos. And Saxon's obviously very aim hungry, so he needs them whenever he can get them. And then the quad laser on there, I thought I was going to face more droids and vehicles, so I'd gone for the impact gun. Again, some changes in the future. I might drop one of those down to the crit gun and put some points elsewhere.
Cool. Yeah, so I'll actually start with my questions here on the truck. I feel like conventional wisdom lately on buses has been to bring medics.
Mm-hmm.
So what got you to the tactician? I mean, obviously Gar Saxon is aim hungry, for sure. But did you do some play testing that was just like, I'm going to try and go all in?
Yeah, I did. And again, like I said, I like to move on the table. I am more often double moving than I am shooting with a lot of my units. I'm not going for kills, I'm going for POIs. If I take the medic, I cannot double move because it's an action to heal. So I have enough acts that I'm already absorbing a lot of firepower. I don't really need to waste time bringing them back. I would rather go on the offensive and really get in their face and move around, which is why I haven't taken the medics. And I've tried the medics before. That it just feels like it slows my momentum down.
Yeah, the medic taking the action really makes me miss the Reckless Driver because that always paired so well for that reason. But yeah, so I saw this and I think I might be swapping out medics for tacticians
Yeah.
myself some as well.
Yeah, this is a real blitzkrieg list. It really gets in. It moves fast and hits fast. I did find towards the end of a couple of games against clones, they would wear me down, and the game started getting a little sketchy. But by then, I was usually far enough ahead on points; it didn't matter too much.
The Black Sun. So typically, when I run out of the bus with the Enforcer, I've dropped down to not the Vigo.
Mm-hmm.
Because I have the frag grenade, and you had talked about maybe switching to the frag.
Mm-hmm.
Was that something you consider doing? Eke out more points?
Yeah, and in fact, I've even thought about dropping the Black Suns altogether and putting a fourth Mando in there because the Mandos in the buses with the auto control and the ability to hang back if you need to is really nice. So there's a possibility I even drop that Black Sun and go for a fourth Mando and get better auto control.
Yeah. I had not thought about that either when you brought that up, because if you do that and you run a Gar Saxon card, you could just order all 4 Mandos.
Yep.
So that's pretty nice for Shadow Collective when it's usually like my order control is that I have 6 core in the bag and that's how I'm gonna, and 2 copies of Improvise or something like that.
Yeah, and on that turn one, that auto control to bring those units out last is really big. So if you can get orders on the 2 buses and they give free orders to the units inside, like with the Black Sun, you don't want to do that because you want the independent. But if it was 2 Mandos, that seems a lot better.
Oh yeah, for sure. And then the last thing I wanted to bring up, I feel like conversation has been shifting recently about bringing Naked Core and Shadow Collective to pump those acts. I think when 2.6 first came out, people were like, don't play pikes, they're no good anymore. And then there was kind of the commando hit a little bit. And so people started bringing them out again. And then lately, when I've been playing them, they are pretty stout. I think I saw some of your comments in the big Discord talking about move them up, take an extra dodge. They can absorb a saber hit pretty well that way.
They actually won me the final against Zach Gibbs, who was a very good player. He had an Anakin list. And right on the last turn of the last activation, Anakin was in the center, and I had a naked pike there. They had independent dodge. I activated before Anakin did, and I took a second dodge on them and moved into melee to tie him up. He didn't have force push on Anakin, so Anakin only rolls 5 dice, and if I dodge 2 of them, my squad isn't dying, and that won me the game. So they are huge. And often I have so many other acts that are scary that nobody's shooting at them anyway. The only time they ever get really hurt is near the end of the game when they're trying to get picked off, and they can really take some firepower.
Yeah. So really neat to see them come back in like kind of a, I guess, scummy way to fit the theme a bit. But yeah, how about command cards? Let's kind of go through there. I think you had said you were playing Discretion at the beginning to order the buses.
And that could have swapped out for Assault, really, because really I'm going for 3 orders. I never pulled any back for dodges. Really, it's the 2 buses. One of the buses will give that Mando that's in it an order, and then the 3rd order goes to a second Mando. So I have 2 Mandos and 2 buses orders up. And then I'm not worried about commanders because there's 3 commander tokens, so I can pad that out. So I have far better order control than you think I do, really, when you play it. And it usually allows me to hold that bus and that Black Sun till 12th and 13th act. And by then, my opponent, who was usually 10 or 11 acts, is well and truly gone, and I can just go wherever I like.
Did you have a typical turn 2 play, or is it pretty dependent on the situation?
Yeah, so turn 2 was usually ploy with the Black Sun, so to go last first. So they would hit at the end of turn 1, and then I'd ploy and hit again right at the start of turn 2. That would usually pick up or severely damage 2 acts.
Nice.
Yeah.
I don't know if there's anything else about your hand you want to go into here, but I love Marked for Illumination. I feel like anyone who doesn't play Shadow Collective is always like, what does that card do? Why is there for observation? Funny enough, and I don't know if this is the same for you, the target I typically mark, I don't shoot at them with Gar Saxon.
No.
That's a black center in your list as super commando is probably going to shoot at them with all those
That's
observation
right.
tokens.
That's right. And then, although to be honest with you, I played a lot. I played two Anakins and a Vader, and I played that card on all three of them. And did not. I did not use any of it, to be honest with you, because I just felt like by the time those guys come out, I haven't got enough time in the game to hurt them. I'd rather be focusing on killing the troops anyway. The card that I really like, which might surprise some people, is Saxon's 2-pip, Fight Another Day, and it's only range 1, but it is clutch turn 3 or 4 when you have Mandos and Saxon and melee on a POI, and you're starting to get overwhelmed. You can play that, and it gives the Mandos a dodge, and then they have defend 1, so they get 2 dodges. And it's really hard to shift Mandos with 2 dodges when they're a melee.
Yeah.
So that was a card I really liked, and that surprised me actually. But because the range one's a limit, but usually Saxon's in there with them as well. So
Very good.
yeah.
Well, cool. Awesome. Well, let's go into your battle deck here. I know you had mentioned recover and shifting were kind of the ones you're really going for. Yeah, just go a little more into that. Yeah.
Yeah, sure. So from the 5 games, I played my objectives 4 times, so that was a big advantage for me too. Recover the research and shifting priorities just lets me shift my axe right across the board and really stretch my opponent. And if they're running 10, 11, 12 axes, it's really hard for them to match me. My last one is Bunker Assault, which with the Mandos is just fantastic. You can just cluster the Mandos and send them straight at one flank and blow it up in 2 turns. 2 Mandos and Saxon will kill it. So that's a big one too. And I got given that on one of the games and just destroyed it.
Besides advanced intel, are you looking more for ordnance or cunning here? I assume it's if you're going against armor or not.
Yeah, exactly. So if there's armor, I'll take ordnance. Otherwise, cunning's always good for dodges on buses and Mandos. If I can take an impact shot away from a bus on turn 1, I'm okay with that.
Yeah. Awesome. Destroy an enemy base totally makes sense with all the speed you've got. Sweeping clear, similar. I'm sure you can actually get into the enemy zone to kill something, possibly. Why recon mission? Why not surface scan?
To be honest with you, some of those cards have such a wall of text that I just I get confused with them, and I don't want to make mistakes, and I end up reading their card 10 times, even though I've probably played it a lot anyway. There's just so much text, and they're so they're not obvious how they work, and they throw me for a loop, and I don't want to be overthinking things in a tournament, so I drop them. I think that's the same with, is it Intercept for the primary? That's another one that's just a wall of text, and I won't play it.
I do like Intercept. I had to read it multiple times to get it down, but yeah.
No, I want to be concentrating on my list, and I don't want to be rereading cards because I don't understand them. So
totally makes sense. Well, cool. Yeah, I liked it. I was definitely analyzing and trying to pick apart that list a bit myself.
One thing that came up in a game that was really interesting, wasn't one of mine. I got forced into the suppression secondary against a Vader list, and I was concerned about that until I realized that all I had to do was wait for him to activate. He had less activations, and then just my pikes would tag one after another, and put suppression on units that are already activated. And all of my guys are pretty much courage 2 other than the pikes anyway, so he wasn't returning it. So I found that my list was really good at that suppression secondary too, so I might even think about fitting that in there instead of recon or something.
All right, because on that one you've got to suppress everyone on the other side, right?
But generally, like Empire's all courage 1, so just tagging them one after they act, and I've got 13 acts, so I have plenty of acts to tag things.
Yeah, for sure. Well, cool. So let's go into this next question here. So, was there a particular matchup or list type that presented a bigger challenge for you to play against? And was it even one you faced at this event?
Yes. So the final was rough. But I played, like I said, I played Zach Gibbs. He's a newer player, but a good player. He had a Anakin 333. The commandos from range, all the rest of the opponents I played, I pretty much outranged through the tournament, but he hit hard from range. And then he had Anakin that I just, when he moved to a POI, I couldn't shift him. And what had happened is the other four opponents had all given me my objectives, so I had a huge advantage. I won the roll off on that one, and he, as the last veto, pushed to close the pocket on with Anakin, which made it very, very tough. And we ended up just doing a dance around the centre for half the game and just trying to avoid Anakin and tie Anakin up while he chewed through my forces. And I was able to just hold him off, basically.
Yeah, and that one was on stream, and
Yeah.
guys should go watch it. Just to see Tony's buses, if anything. I'll throw a picture up of those here in a minute. They are beautiful. But yeah, when I pulled that matchup, I was like, how did he win this one?
Yeah.
Because when I have to deal with commandos, it's to send Maul into them. So I was like, what's he gonna do here? But yeah, you played it great.
Yeah, it was a case of throwing naked pikes at Anakin, and then redeploying those Mandos at the last minute from the right where I was losing into the center.
Yeah. So would you say it's mostly that ranged pierce firepower with that heavy melee linebacker that was
Yeah,
the biggest concern?
yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
I took care of his troops and his arcs pretty well, but yeah, Anakin and those commandos just there was not much I could do about them.
Mhm.
There was not much point shooting at them. I didn't want to waste the time, and so I really just weathered it and tried to avoid them while I killed everything else.
Yeah. Well, cool. We kind of already talked about what kind of list changes you'd want to make. But based on how things are going as far as tournament play, I know Adepticon's coming up. I don't know if we'll get a lot of changes in Shadow Collective,
Mm,
but everything keeps tending to change around us. Do you think padding activations will continue to be good?
yes, and I think if you're not doing that right now, you're probably making a mistake.
Mhm.
I had such an advantage over people who were playing 10 and 11 acts that it was not even funny. And those guys all said that after I played them, that they just felt behind the whole time. And there was nothing they could do. They couldn't kill enough of me, and I was just all over the POIs.
Yeah. Had you leading up to the tournament? Had you gotten any games in with someone with equal acts or more acts? Because were you running 12 or
I
13?
was running 13. Yeah. No, I hadn't really. I faced, I think, another 12 act Shadow Collective list, but his was more short range, so I was able to pick it apart before we got to close range.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was kind of curious because I feel like that would be an interesting matchup,
Mm,
like a 14 act Rebels bringing their sleepers down the barrel at you. But
yeah.
um,
Yeah, that was. I was definitely worried about that, but again, somehow I managed to avoid them all day, so I wasn't sad about that.
yeah, for sure. Yeah. Okay, cool. Um, so did you see any trends at this event that you noticed from other players or list archetypes that people were trying out that you hadn't run into before then? Or
um, the clone players. I played three clone players. Two of them were the typical Anakin lists you've seen for the last year or so. That was fairly. There was some. Actually, one of them was running some of those ISPs. I made sure I nuked those with the Mandos turn one and turn two because they would have wreaked havoc on my pikes, I think. So there was some ISPs. I played an ISP against the Cody list too. So yeah, there was quite a few ISPs and ATRTs and so on. Um,
yeah, I think did you play against a Cody list
mhm,
round one? Yeah, there's
mhm.
a lot of vehicles. That was
Yeah,
interesting.
yeah.
Yeah,
So yeah, I just used the Mandos to pick those vehicles off at range and then moved in. Yeah.
yeah.
As far as anything else, I played Gus, who's been playing Vader since the beginning of the game too. him and I go backwards and forwards on winning and losing, and he's always a tough opponent. And he's always bringing some good stuff. He brought beef squads. I out activated them, but killing those beef squads, beef storms, is just really hard. There's so many of them. They don't do a lot of damage in return usually, but man, they take some killing.
Yeah. Well, great. I guess, was there any lists in particular you were hoping to face that you're like, yes, this is definitely, I have the advantage on this?
Yeah, so I played Steve Sogo, who brought another Shadow Collective list. He brought a 2-bus list with 6 Black Suns. So he had no guns on the buses, and I knew I outranged him right from the start. So I really just held back turn 1 and 2 and just let it rip and just killed as much as I could, and then I closed in on the POIs. He got Maulin at the end on one of my POIs, but it was just some pikes, and I'd already taken the rest of the board, so I was feeling pretty good about that. So unfortunately for him, I just outranged him.
Yeah.
He's a good player too, but it was just a bad matchup for him, even though they were both Shadow Collective.
Yeah. Oh, speaking of range, did you end up taking many shots with the naked pikes? I know on the suppression list game, it sounded like you did a couple of shots, but
Yeah, on that one I did and on the last game I kind of had to because I was starting to get behind, so I was shooting from the edge in. But for the most part, no, they hide and dodge and move, and that's really what they do, and then move into melee and tie things up when they have to. So four black dice is going to do a lot, maybe 1 wound at most. So most of the time, it's better to dodge and move and hide.
great. Okay, well, I've got kind of one more question for you, but any other thoughts on the tournament in general, or any particular match highlights you'd like to throw out?
I had 5 great games. Like I said, 5280 is just a great bunch of guys and girls. Everyone is fantastic. I highly recommend anyone who wants to come to Colorado and play in any of these tournaments because we have a great crew here. Yeah, everything was great. There were so many highlights. Really, every game had a lot of them. So, yeah, great opponents and great team there.
Awesome. Well, so is there any plans for yourself for Legion 2025? Going to continue on with Shadow Collective? Any changes you'd like to see in Shadow Collective, or any other factions you might be dipping your toes in the rest of the year?
Yeah, I mean, I've always loved Empire. They're just a bit behind the ball right now. They've always been my first love, bounty hunters especially, and I'd love to see some love for the bounty hunters in Empire, so I could play that again. For Shadow Collective, before I went into this tournament, I kind of thought Mandos were overpriced and they died too easy, but by the end of this tournament, I'd really got a good feel for them, and I'm not so sure anymore. I think they might be okay. Obviously, they must be pretty good because I won the tournament.
Yeah, I was like, he doesn't have shields. He doesn't have Eastoms. There's no medics here. What's going on? I'm terrible. I'm notoriously terrible at red saves. So I guess if you're decent at red saves, they're probably better. But
Well, yeah, I did roll okay, but what I did find was stay at range 4, take your shots, and then turn as soon as you can, get on a POI and locked in melee, and they really can't shift you. And you might lose 1 or 2 Mandos a turn, but you're losing a lot less than when you're dancing around trying to shoot things. And you can always withdraw and move to another POI if you need to, or withdraw and get behind something fast if you're dying. So yeah, the Mandos were good. The Black Suns are okay. Pikes are fantastic. Buses are fantastic. I honestly, I don't know. I think Shadow Collective's still in a pretty good place, to be honest with you.
the main thing I want is the Black Sun shotgun to work in melee.
Yes.
Everyone else's shotgun does.
And the Mag Dead as well, probably, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. And the shotgun, I did actually have the shotgun in this list beforehand, but I found it was just too expensive. Their squad was dying on turn 2 anyway, so I went for the Mag Dead because it was cheaper.
Yeah, the Pierce is so nice. Maybe if you drop that Vigo down, it'd be a little easier to get in there, but
yeah,
for sure. Well, it's been awesome talking to you. I wanted to give you the opportunity to shout anybody out, or
I guess Stephen ran the whole tournament, Space Viking on the Discord. He got some of the best prize support at any tournament I've ever seen. Every single person got away with a large amount of booty. So it was he did very, very well and he ran a tight tournament. So yeah, kudos to him again. He always runs the RMO and a lot of the store tournaments. He did a fantastic job and just a great job to all players.
Oh yeah, I saw a lot of people ended up playing like chaos doubles the second
Mm-hmm.
day.
Yeah.
I'm unfamiliar with that, but
Yeah,
it seems
so
like it was quite popular.
so I was actually supposed to play Chaos Doubles, and I feel a little bad. Stabcast Will and I were going to play Shadow Collective Chaos Doubles, and I let him down by winning all the way through, and had to leave him.
It's like, of course we're not going to be in it day 2. We're playing Shadow Collective. Well, yeah, we'll play doubles the next day. Yeah.
But what that is Noah Solomon put that together, and that was Stephen has designed a program that gives you you put in the faction and it'll give you a random number of units. So in this case, I think you had a 600 point list you had to build, but it gave you 300 points of units you had to use. So each player got 300 points they had to use, and then they got to put their own 300 points, and then they played doubles with it. And they had some pretty crazy lists, I think, by the sound of it. Yeah.
Wow. Man, so do you just got to bring a ton of models then,
no,
or do they have extra supplied?
Yeah, no, they do it ahead of time. So a week
okay.
up to
Yeah,
a
I guess
week
that makes
before,
sense.
you could message them and say, "Hey, roll me my 300 points."
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Cool. Neat.
Yeah. It was a good. It sounds like everyone had a blast too, and then he had some random things that were happening through the games. Like it sounded like there was some tanks flying around or something. I'm not sure what was happening.
Nice.
Yeah.
Well, great. Cool. Yeah, I really enjoyed talking to you, Tony, and congratulations again on taking down the win.
Thank you.
We gotta spread the spice throughout the galaxy.
Yeah, for sure. Well, thanks again for having me.
Oh yeah, it was a pleasure, and thank you for watching this episode of Going X and O, and we'll catch you next time.